I am successful. I look for and find opportunities where others see nothing. I am a lifetime learner. I am solution focused. I see only solutions. I am a solution. So welcome to the Be Transformed podcast. I'm the catalyst. My name is Lanre Olusola. And this is your go-to space for practical mind transforming conversations that empower you to overcome life's biggest challenges. One of the biggest challenges we have today is social media and digital landscape, man. It creates a lot of problems, mental and emotional problems for our children, our children's children, across all generations, even to the baby bloomers. And it's responsible for a lot of, disconnect. It's responsible for a lot of detachment in relationships. It's responsible for depression. It's responsible for a lot of fear, phobia, cyberbullying, anxiety, imposter syndrome, and a lot of relationship issues. People have relationships with their devices to the detriment of physical relationship. So this is your go-to space where, we bring real issues and we bring the experts to come talk to us on how to resolve those issues. Now, together today, it's all about mind transformation. It's all about transforming our social and digital space. And we're diving into the topic, the influence of digital and social media on identity and culture. And I'm joined by none other than Yeti Williams. She's a social entrepreneur. She's a digital parenting coach and an author, a seasoned business mentor with a deep commitment to supporting families and guiding parents through the digital age. She's also the founder of Lagos Moms, Nigeria's pioneering platform for parents. And this platform is a very vibrant e-community that educates families on digital well-being, online safety, and engaging technology mindfully and raising responsible digital citizens. She's a certified and accredited life coach. She's trained in cognitive behavioral therapy, neuro-linguistic programming, online safety, and cyber psychology. Her impact extends beyond coaching. She's got several partnerships with organizations like Google, Africa Online, and the list goes on and on and on. With an MBA from the Yale School of Management, she actively mentors SMEs through several initiatives globally. She's a multi-award winning transformative voice in parenting and digital citizenship. Welcome to the podcast with Yeti Williams. How are you today, Yeti?
Thank you so much, TC, for having me on today. I'm very, very excited to be here. It's always amazing talking to you, conversing, and as they say, I learned from the best. So,
Thank you for all you've done over the years. And it's amazing from MBA from Yale to working in various multinational corporations with several leadership roles, several consulting briefs and business strategy, initiatives. How did you find yourself working in this social media and digital media space? Let's start from there.
Very interesting, TC. When you look back and think, there's no way I could have envisioned this. This was really a work of grace, of resilience, of not being scared to take initiative. Growing up, one of the things I always said as a child was, ask, what's the worst that'll happen? The worst is no. And I remember a cousin of mine reminding me recently that, growing up, that's one thing you always said. So it's as if you didn't have fear. You would always ask, the worst they can say is no. But if I don't ask, I don't know. And so my most pivotal moment in my life was when I became a mother. And when I moved back to Nigeria, I had lived in Nigeria till 17, moved away at 17, actually, to the US. So 30 years ago, actually. Yes, I'm dating myself. So I lived there for about 11 years, moved back to Nigeria. And at that moment, I recognized that because I had two cultures, if you will, behind me, my view on my future, my view on my role as a mother, my view on a role as a wife was very different. And because I had lots of questions that were quite different from how I was raised, I found myself going online quite a bit to do some research. Now, this was over a decade ago. So I remember thinking, okay, everything I'm seeing out there is talking about your life if you are Western, US, UK. What about me as a Nigerian woman? Yes, I've had this external exposure, but I'm back in Nigeria now with my first child, newly married. What I was looking for was quite different. So that's what took me into this journey of asking more questions based on the stage of life I was in. And then I started Lagos Moms when I was a stay-at-home mom with my second child. And that was when I was like, I'm sure there are other women who are questioning some of these so-called ideas of how things should be done. I've always been somebody who pushes the envelope, and we can talk later about how that played a part in parenting, in the parenting strategies as well that I got and that I'm also teaching on. But I recognized then that I wasn't the only one that had these questions. And little by little, this curiosity has birthed this, platform and this journey into Lagos Moms, what I now call Lagos to the world, essentially.
Wow, this is really, really interesting, and it dovetails into my next question. So what I hear you say is that we live in multiple worlds, a minimum of two worlds. And today, people live in a virtual world, and people live in a physical world. And as you began to experience life, another phase of your life, you realize that, oh man, I've got to understand these two worlds. You lived in America, schooled in America, and you are deeply African. Your roots was in Africa. You came back to Africa, which makes you a global citizen, right? And also a local citizen. And so you were trying to navigate the things that I learned when I was in Yale and when I was in school in America, and the things that I'm seeing in Nigeria are completely different, right? As parenting in the West is different from parenting here. Being a woman in the West is different from being a woman here. So as Africans on the digital global stage, how is social media and digital media redefining
Mm.
our identity for good, for bad, and for ugly?
Mm. Very powerful question. And, it is so dynamic that, if we're not careful, a lot of us are going to operate from a place of fear. But nothing good comes out of fear. We're in the fourth industrial revolution. I remember doing a course, one of these free MOOCs online, and it was by Jeffrey Sachs, and he was explaining the different, industrial stages. The first one brought some critical changes in the world. I think that's when the whole steam engine started. Then the second industrial revolution had its own innovation as well. Then the third. So basically, the point being at critical times in humanity, there have been major innovations that changed the world as we knew it. For example, I remember studying within that study, I found out that franchise system came out of the fact that because people were moving further away from home in the US, they were able to get on trains and go further away to live and work. There was a sense of comfort that came from if I leave my home in Connecticut and I move to Kentucky, I can still see some of the similar brands, eateries, restaurants, supermarkets. So there was a sense of, okay, it's not that bad. Even though I'm not with my people, I'm still seeing things that make me feel comfortable. When you move to television, radio, all of those things made critical changes in humanity. So I'm not somebody who's overly dramatic because I feel that the phase we're in now is simply the fact that we're in a different industrial revolution that's moving faster than we have ever seen before. But guess what? We have been here before. When cars came out, if you do the research, people were scared that if they're in cars and the cars are moving fast, maybe their intestines will come out. You look now and you laugh and think, come on. But the point is, we've been here before. So I like to first start that with, let's just all calm down. Yes, things are faster than we ever imagined, but the person who at a point in time, the only way they could communicate was to write letters, long letters, wait for months before that letter will go through, not even post office or through the ship. I mean, on the waters before it will get there, before the person will write and respond. Then suddenly, post office came. It was faster because it was going on planes. Then we got to email. So that evolution is part of what makes us human. And so I like to first start from that grounding that it's not good or bad that we're in the digital age. It is both good and bad. It's how you learn to engage with it. It's what you are using it for. If you don't have a plan, if the goal of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. So let's understand, what is social media, who created it, what is the genesis of social media. When you understand the genesis as well, you start to know, why is it causing some of the things that we are seeing. You actually shouldn't be surprised, and we'll get into that. You shouldn't be surprised when you see what social media, for example, is causing, because the genesis of what it was created for was never what it has become the mass use of. So I'll summarize by saying the world now is very different, but I like us coming from an informed place of, things will continue to evolve. How are we as human beings in this space and this time using it positively for ourselves and for the generation to come?
Wow, I love that. I love that. Thank you very much. So the genesis, if you do not know the purpose or the goal for which something was created, you will put it to abnormal use.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's talk about social and digital media. What was its original intention? Why was it created? How are we misusing it now? And how is it causing us, to
Yeah.
abuse ourselves, to misuse ourselves, and how is it eroding our culture, our tradition, and our values as Africans?
Yeah. So the main thing with social media, first of all, the main thing with digital technologies, period, is that it's now a borderless world. There are no more geographical boundaries between where I'm sitting, where you are sitting, what our children are viewing, what we are consuming. So because it's a borderless world, we are influenced by multiple opinions. There are now billions of people online. There are billions of people on social media. I don't think humanity was ever supposed to be one where you are influenced by billions of people's opinions. If you are influenced by billions of people's opinions, what are your values? What do you believe if consistently you are being fed with other people's thoughts? And those thoughts are being fed by algorithms. So what that means from a technical digital technologies perspective is, the computers have been set up to be efficient. They don't care that Bode, who's online, is 13 years old. All they care about is this particular IP address or profile seems to be interested in this type of topic. So being an efficient computer system, aka the algorithms, I'm going to start offering Bode more of this information that he seems to be interested in. Now, that is what starts to shift a person's perspective, views of the world, views of themselves, because it creates something called an echo chamber. The more of what you see, the more of what you feed on is what is going to shape your worldview. So when we look at African as a continent and what it means for Africans, number one, Africa is so diverse. So how somebody from East Africa operates or sees the world is different from somebody from West Africa, from South Africa, from North Africa. So we're already very different. Then we come into this world where everybody is having a chance to say what they want, when they want, whether or not it's accurate. Or if I wake up today and I want to say, you know what, I identify as an astronaut, I can use AI to put astronaut outfit on and start to do reels, talking as if I just came back from the most recent trip to space, right? So the point is that we have now become one where we can say whatever we want, and that is what is affecting us. So we need to go back to certain things. What are core values? What do we believe in? Whatever we're doing online is a mirror of actually what's in our heart, of how we view ourselves, how we view our place in the world. And then the online platform, whether it's social media, you can either use that for two things: for good, where you're consuming more of the kind of content that builds you up, or you are consuming that content that is derailing you and taking you in a direction that you don't want. And I think is that sense of power, that this device in my hand is a tool to the world, and nobody is forcing me to take actions using this device. I am the one doing it. However, you should ask yourself, are you really the one doing it? Or have the algorithms shaped your worldview? And you'll be saying, I'm just speaking my truth. But actually, is it your truth? So those are the deep things I think we need to start asking ourselves. And if we learn that as an internal, I love NLP, which I learned from you. And one of the things is about your brain is a muscle. The neural pathways are going to form based on what you are feeding it. So you need to be thinking, what highway am I always jetting down every day? That highway is the highway to your life and your future.
Wow, this is so deep. This is so deep. And let me just recalibrate and reposture. Wow, wow. Now we're all products of influence. Mm, Nurture influences our nature. And because of that, we have to, be cognizant of where we're being nurtured from, how we're being nurtured. Now, originally, we were designed to be nurtured in a family setting by a few people: mother, father, siblings, aunties, and what we call that small village.
Yeah.
Now, we were not created to be nurtured by billions of opinions. We were not created to be nurtured by an algorithm that sends billions of information to us by virtue of the things we search for, or that portray what our interests are. So the computer receives a search and interprets it as what you are interested in. And then the algorithm begins to bombard you and puts you into what you call an echo chamber. That is, it isolates you, right? And continues to bombard you with more of that information. And then at some point, it begins to recalibrate how you are thinking. It begins to recalibrate how you see the world. It begins to recalibrate your belief system. It begins to recalibrate your emotional system. It begins to recalibrate your decision making system. And then your behaviors are beginning to be shaped. And then your outcomes begin to change. And so you become the algorithm, or what the algorithm feeds you. For is a function of, if you walk with the wise, you'll be wise. So let's see the system as a system that has gone into the cyberspace to get information from billions of different people and summarizing them and feeding you with it. So you are being parented, you are being taught, you are being mentored, you are being coached, you are being shaped and reshaped by a device. Wow. 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 And hey, this is what I hear you say. As Africans, this is not how we are designed. We're designed as diverse beings. Our strength is in our diversity. So this echo chamber eliminates that diversity and begins to feed you with the things that it thinks that you need to be fed with. So you're not supposed to be eating certain foods, because it will cause you cancer, it will cause you deadly disease. But unfortunately, that's all you have access to. If you're hungry, you would have to be forced to eat it. And what will be the ultimate outcome for you? Disease and death. Wow. Now it's important for us to be educated, to be informed about this system, because this system is amoral. It doesn't think about what is good for you at 14. It doesn't think about what is right for you at 11. It doesn't see you. It doesn't know you. It just simply sees the device that is interacting with it as another device. So it's device to device. And you, as the human being, you need to maintain your humanity, your spirituality, your authenticity, your Africanism, if you're African, your core values, your tradition, and your culture. You need to fight the good fight of faith, identity, and authenticity. Wow, wow, wow. This is deep. And this speaks to how social and digital, in fact, it's not even social and digital media, it's how the algorithm is recreating you, how an algorithm is rebranding you, how an algorithm, right, is influencing you to become something else that you are not.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. This is deep. This is deep. This is deep. Now, Yeti, whew, this is the the ugly side of it. But I'm sure
Mm,
many bright sides of it. And I've seen many bright sides of it.
yeah.
So let's look at the bright side also. Which one positive African cultural phenomenon or African essence or African value has this algorithm blown up and repositioned Africa as top notch?
The first thing that comes to my mind is our music,
Mm,
Afrobeats,
wow.
right? I mean, gosh, I remember the first time many, many years ago, I was walking down, forget the street, I think it was Times Square in New York, and we're passing a shoe store. And we said, ah, isn't that, I forget who was playing on the radio, but it was an African artist that was playing in the middle of New York, many, many years ago. And now that is a common thing. Anywhere you go, you are bound to hear it. Supermarkets, restaurants, clothing store. I remember going to a store in the UK recently, and a lady was it was next, and she was, ringing up my bill, and Burna Boy was playing, and she was really bopping her head. So I said, "Oh, you like it?" She said, "I love it. I don't even understand what he's saying, but oh my goodness, the beats just make you happy." And and this was a white woman. When she was talking about it, I thought, wow, look at how far the same digital technologies, for example, has worked in our favor to push this kind of music. So that's the first thing that comes into my mind in terms of, like I said earlier, digital technologies are not good or bad. They are what they are. They are simply tools. They are powerful tools. What you do with them, how you engage with it is the difference.
Wow, very powerful. Afrobeats. Afrobeats, many of our Nigerian and African artists have won the Grammys simply because the world is listening to our music,
Yeah.
simply because the world is vibing to the rhythm of our frequency and our sound. Music is very spiritual. And Afrobeats, it brings a sense of joy,
Yeah.
a sense of happiness, and a sense of freedom and liberty, which is the essence of who we are and what we are as Africans. So Afrobeats is an expression of this African spirit. Wow, I love the fact that algorithm, and I just want to keep it that way.
Mm,
Algorithm, that system, has blown up Afrobeats and repositioned us from the backside of the deserts to the front lines, to the extent that the Grammys have created another genre of awards for us. That happened because the algorithms made it happen. Wow. Wow. Now today, another kind of algorithm is helping our Afrobeats stars generate crazy revenue. How be it YouTube, how be it Spotify, how be it Apple Music. These guys sit anywhere in the world, and every week they are earning millions in dollars. The same algorithms. So, ladies and gentlemen, the algorithm is amoral. It's neither good, bad, or ugly. Now, it's your choice what you do with it and how you engage with it. If you want it to destroy you, it will. If you want it to make you, it will. Now, Yeti, you have gone onto this platform. You have studied these algorithms. You have studied social media, digital media. It has given you what I call digital visibility because you have used it to set up Lagos Moms and to do a lot of the work that you do, which meant that you needed to step into that space with courage and boldness, and you used it to give yourself expression. Howbeit, you did it with caution.
mm,
Mm. Now, having attained what I call digital visibility. Haven't stepped out with courage, and haven't given yourself that sense of expression with caution. How did you do it? Because it is important for us to note from the conversations we've had. You can turn out it can turn out to be good for you. It can turn out to be bad for you. It can turn out to be ugly for you. If you break it down into steps, having navigated it, having used it, knowing the danger in it, understanding how you can create boundaries and safety boundaries. If you were giving someone a framework, right, to get in, and master it
Yeah.
and utilize it for good, what would you say to them?
Yeah, fantastic. I mentioned earlier if the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. So I think the first step is asking yourself, why? What's my why? Why am I getting on this? Why am I using it? Yes, you're absolutely right in terms of I love technology because I see what is done in my life. I've seen what is done in my business. I see the reach globally that it's allowed me to achieve. I was looking at analytics the other day, and our website has 1.5 million visitors monthly from several parts of the world, not just Nigeria. So it's a powerful tool how you use it. So for me, if somebody says, "Oh, I want to get on, but I don't know where to start, or how do I not lose myself?" First of all, is what are you doing on there? We've talked about the negatives very lightly earlier, but if, for example, somebody who is not ready for the power of social media gets on, and what they start to do is take pictures of themselves every day, using filters to modify how they look, to present a look that is not really them. And that's actually something called selfie dysmorphia, right? Which is an actual, it's a mental health condition, right? And so I will come back to why are you getting on there? For me, when I started, it was to build a business. It wasn't for personal gain. It wasn't to show that I'm traveling. It wasn't to show whether I had the best, newest handbag or not. It was to build a business. So that was my why. So when I got on social media, I didn't even have a personal page initially. It was only my business page. That's what I used consistently. It got to a point where there were certain requirements. Don't you have your own personal page? Or you should have your own personal page. I just thought, okay, for what is what? Let me just set one up. But even today, I'm more active on my business page on social media. So going on social media for me, my whys were clear. It was to support parents. It was to support mothers. It was to navigate this digital world to raise responsible digital adults. We're not raising children, we're raising adults. And to do that successfully, you need to have a plan and then you need to work backwards to get there. But what worked when I was a child, pre-digital, is not going to work for a child today who's being influenced by billions of people at the same time that mom and dad are trying to influence them. So that's number one. Why are you using it? What are you using it for? And then how would you measure success? So if you don't know, are you using it to gain followers, but are your followers for vanity metrics? Or are your followers for you to earn money? Then that means you need a business strategy around how you are using it to ensure that you are monetizing if that's what you want. So my steps will be that. Number one, why are you getting on? Number two, what do you want to do with this powerful tool that gives you access to billions? What do you want to do with that? Is it for vanity metrics or is it to actually create an enterprise for yourself? And then the third thing would be, how are you doing it? How are you checking in? Are you measuring metrics? Do you know whether what you're trying to achieve is actually happening? And guess what? There's nothing like failure in my books. Failure is simply feedback. So if you had a goal, is it working? Fantastic. Is it not working? What do I need to tweak? So I believe in that concept of failing forward. Whatever and I think data is very, I love data because I think data is very, not I think, I know. Data is unemotional. It's telling you what is happening. You are the one that attaches emotion to it. So is it giving me what I want? Am I getting the followers who are converting and paying me? What does it help a man to have millions of followers and if you're trying to build your business, they are not giving you one kobo, it's not doing anything. So how do you measure that? So that's how I would answer that question on being very clear on your what, your why, and your how.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. And I'll just add to that. So the first step is purpose and goals. which defines your why, which defines your what, which defines your how. Okay. And also, once you set those goals and those parameters, make sure you're measuring them. Because sometimes, you get distracted.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're measuring them. That now brings me to the second point that I heard you talk about, selfie dysmorphia, right? Stay authentic.
Yeah.
That's the second step. So once your purpose and your goals are clear, you've defined the why, you've defined the what, you've defined the how, right? Make sure that you stay authentic. Honestly, the more authentic you are, the more you stand out. A lot of people don't know, right? That, the more you look like people, the more you disappear. The
Absolutely.
more you stay authentic and original, the more you stand out, the more outstanding you are. So stay authentic. The third thing is to set boundaries. Set time boundaries, set platform boundaries, set identity boundaries, set authenticity boundaries for yourself. Very, very important. It's not everywhere you should go. It's not everything you should do. It's not every time you should be on the system. Set a time, a particular time where, and make sure that you set the right boundaries for the right platforms for your purpose. Choose the right platform for the purpose for which you are online. And the last thing is accountability. Find one, two, three people that can hold you accountable or put in place the same system can shut you out. So install a software that after that 1 hour that you set between 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., it kicks you out and shuts you down for the whole day. Accountability. So I call it PABA: purpose, authenticity, boundaries, and accountability. PABA. Again, purpose, authenticity, boundaries, and accountability. Very, very important. Now, Yeti, now moving to the next, point that I think is important for us to discuss is how do we navigate this delicate dance between authenticity and copycatism, especially as a creator, as an entrepreneur, and a solution provider. Honestly, the algorithm says, this is how you should do it because the 10 top people have done it this way. You go to ChatGPT and ChatGPT tells you that, man, this is what you should do, because this is what the algorithm expects from you. How do you create that delicate dance between step two, which is authenticity, and copycatism online?
Mm, mm.
Especially if you are trying to create a brand, especially if you have a message, especially if you are trying to create a business, especially if you are trying to stand out as a solution provider.
Yeah, great question. Authenticity. I feel like there's some words that are buzzwords, but when you drill to the core of it, a lot of people don't really know what it means. What does it mean? What does it mean to be authentic? Oh, is it to always say I'm speaking my truth? But like I mentioned earlier, is it your truth? Or have you been radicalized by the algorithm and you think is your truth, but it's actually algorithmic radicalization which exists, right? So what are you? Who are you?
Algorithmic radicalism. Wow.
Radicalization. Yes, it is a
Radicalized.
thing. People are radicalized by the algorithms. And we haven't even gotten into parenting. Imagine with all of this, you're a parent and you think your child upstairs, Bode is upstairs in his room. You don't know what world Bode is in. But you are proudly saying, my child is Nigerian or wherever you're from, but your child is not Nigerian.
Boys
Your
that
child's viewpoint is,
doesn't like
but
going
he's
out,
at home.
stays in his
Maybe he
room.
doesn't like going home. You think he's okay. That might be worse. Anyway, so to answer your question specifically about authenticity, how do you avoid being a copycat? The truth is that with the algorithms and with AI, generative AI, because AI has been around for a long time, using Siri's AI, it's not that AI is new. It's the generative AI that is new that's causing the whole world to be, oh my God, is that generative AI? It talks like it's a human, it gives you responses. People are starting to become, there's something called learned helplessness, which is happening now. And you have to check it because you find that you want to create content, but you're thinking, let me quickly run it through ChatGPT. ChatGPT, improve this copy for me. Or let me quickly check what's trending. What are other people doing? So you find that if you're not careful, you start losing that authenticity naturally because anything you create, you are always checking. You are checking with the algorithms, but the algorithms are based on what? Data. The algorithms are based on what many people have said. That's what the algorithm is not creating anything new. It's just amassing, something like Gen AI. It's not amassing news content really. It's looking at all the data out there and distilling it to give you something. So if you're not careful, you start to lose how you talk because they are going to the platforms will continue to edit it for you based on what everybody else is saying. And that's where that copycatism can come in because you are no more unique, you are not authentic, you are saying what everybody else says is saying in the same way they are saying it and all of that. So back to, I think it's so important to start with that why. I have a model I use with women that I coach, abundant living, and that abundant for me is an algorithm. Not algorithm. It's a framework, right? If you don't start with your why in anything, you will lose your way because we're in a world where distraction is high for everybody. So if you can so easily be distracted and you are not constantly making time for yourself to sit, check inward, why am I doing this? Am I still doing what I said I want to do in the way I want to do it? And is it authentic to what I want to do and why? And you're allowed to change. Like, we know what SMART goals are, right? You're allowed to change your goals. However, you must be the one that's intentionally changing it. If not, you are just flowing with the flow and you don't know that you're flowing with the flow. And you look back and think, wait, how did I end up here? This is not even what I'm about. This is not where I started. And then for some people, when they get stuck there, guess what is the saddest? They don't know how to start making those steps back to who they originally were. And you can never thrive as a fake version of yourself. You can never. It's not how. Yeah.
You can never thrive as a fake version of yourself. When you start to double check, triple check, quadruple check, you are gradually evolving away from your authentic self to the fake version of the algorithmic version of yourself. That wasn't how God created you. God created you with a brain, a mind, a heart to think for yourself. God says to us, come, let us reason together. And AI is gradually taking people away from God. It's gradually taking people away from their spirituality, tuning deep within themselves to find the truth, to find, solutions from deep within their spirit and deep within the heart of God that dwells within them. Wow, wow. You can never thrive and succeed based on the fake version of yourself. Now, I want to talk about something that is really, really important to me, based on my discipline and the work that I do. But I want you to speak to it because this is your domain. What is the psychological and biological effect of having your posts go viral? Many sub questions to ask under that. So let's start with that. What is the psychological and biochemical effect of having your post go viral?
It's a dopamine high. It's a dopamine high. You post something, you are on show. Social media is about being on show. Nobody goes on social media to post their worst day or something, even though some do. So we can talk about that side as well, where some people are trauma dumping online and don't recognize that that's what they're doing. But the dopamine high that comes from posting something and going viral, what happens is you get that high, but a lot of people, they don't talk about it, but a lot of people that go viral tend to crash afterwards because then they cannot maintain that level of virality. And once again, because of the algorithms, you don't always know what made you go viral. Sometimes it's luck. Sometimes it's just the day of the month. Sometimes maybe that platform was reconfiguring something and somehow they are testing something. So you went viral. You now start to compare yourself to that one virality you got in January 1st, 2023. And 2 years later, January 1st, 2025, you haven't been able to hit that level of virality again. Then you start to judge yourself. Maybe you don't know what you're saying. Maybe people don't like you. Can you see that spiral? You will just spiral off something that you cannot, unless you can systemically say that every time I post content that says ABC, I always go viral. And your viral, you know what viral is? For you, viral TC might be 1 million hits. Viral for me might be 10. So what is your own measure of virality? So if you can now say viral for me means I post this in this way, I get this number of likes and hits, it leads to this. For me, that's virality. And I have a system that ensures I always get that. That is different. But when it's per chance viral go, your dopamine does like this, and you are never able to continue that, people crash and burn. They lose motivation. They lose a sense of self. They start to judge themselves, and then climbing out of a hole that the algorithm created. How now? You can't even climb out.
Mm, mm. And you are still on the system. So the
Yes,
algorithm has trapped you.
trapped you.
You are trapped. You are dealing with mental health issues. You are depressed. You are sad. You are on a drug.
It's a drug. It's not
Yeah,
like it's a drug.
yeah, you are chasing that high.
Yes,
And then you start posting nonsense.
exactly.
You start doing different crazy things. Before you realize it, you've lost yourself.
Absolutely.
And people are wondering what
Happened.
happened to her? What happened to her? And you have lost your sense of identity and authenticity. And you can't even trace it back. You can't even track it. And when you go to see a therapist, this is the danger. When you go to see a therapist and a coach, you don't bring that up
Yeah.
because you don't even know that is the cause and the root cause of your problem. So you begin to say that, you've lost confidence. You begin to say that you don't even know, you're not sure about yourself anymore. You begin to talk about the experiences around you that you think could be the cause. And you don't bring up social media. And as therapists, as coaches, we're not magicians. We ask you questions. So what have you been doing? Where have you been? Who have you been interacting with? Those kind of questions are answered by virtue of your physical experiences, not your virtual experiences. So if you are going to seek help from an expert, even when you are sick as a result of stress, let your doctor know how much time you are spending online, on what platforms, and let your therapist and your coach know what platforms you've been on and what happened and when and how it's made you feel. If you just bring it up to an integrative practitioner, right, that embodies coaching, therapy, neuroscience, psychodynamics, and all of that, they will know how to help bring you out of that hole that you have dug yourself into. It is very, very critical, please, right? That when you are looking at the causes of your challenges and your problems, you add social and digital media as part of it. Very, very key. Now, Yeti, let's go to another conversation that I think is really, really important. You know, what is something uniquely African that you feel is being misinterpreted or being misunderstood because of social media narratives?
Hmm. Before I answer that, TC, what you just said about that whole therapist and coaching, last year I got a diploma in cyber psychology. And one of the things that is critical, no matter what role you sit in the world, you have to build a level of expertise to understand. You don't have to become an expert. But like you said, that digital well being is a core of our daily lives. You can no longer ignore it, especially for our younger users. They don't have an online versus offline reality. For them, it is one. It is absolutely one. So if we are, I remember when you go to seek therapy, it's a point in time. And many times they're trying to fix what you're presenting with in that point in time. And so it's so important that more and more people, more and more practitioners For example, I do integrative coaching. So you can come to me, for example, on topic A. I'm going to ask a series of questions that will identify what you are not saying, but is actually part of the issue. So you can't do A, B, C, D because D is there poking you every single day quietly. That thorn in your side that you're not bringing up, but it's a thorn. But you think you can run from the thorn, you cannot. So I just wanted to add that level you said is so powerful and so important to recognize the role of digital well-being and how it is presenting with whoever is in front of you, because we're all suffering it one way or the other. Okay, and then to answer your question around what are some of the things that we're missing from an African, online or African perspective. First of all, I think that social media is doing something where it is dividing us more than we recognize. While there seems to be a lot of the African voice, Africanism, there's also a lot of separation. There's also a lot of that's no, or is it the Jollof Rice Wars? Or, is it this African beat versus that one? I think it's doing both good and bad. It's bringing a lot of awareness. It's bringing a lot for our culture. I do think so. But our culture, once again, is diverse. And I believe that culture evolves. Culture is not static. It's not a static thing. This is just our culture. Even as a Nigerian Yoruba woman, I can tell that what our culture is has evolved, right? So I think we need to all be really going deep into what does it mean? What's the core of being an African? I don't know that what you will say and what I will say is necessarily the same thing. However, if you ask somebody, what is a British culture? Most of us can maybe get 70% of what we think being British means. But when we say what does it mean to be African, it is quite broad. And for me, one of the biggest things that I think would be wonderful for us to work on is to find a way to celebrate that diversity. So DEI has become something that's a Western world construct. However, I think on an African basis, we're so diverse that what we now need to start working on is how are we including that diversity in a way that we celebrate each other. Nigeria alone has how many cultures, how many languages, before you go African, there are 54. Africa is not a country like some of the Western world thinks. We're a continent with over 50. It's not 54, 54 countries, different tribes, different belief systems, different religions. Where do we want to start from? So it would be wonderful if there's a think tank. I'm talking prophetic here. A think tank that says, this is our Africanism. Can we start to distill it in a way where that diversity is inclusive? So there's less separation, more understanding, more appreciation, and let's use the algorithms in our favor. Imagine we start having more Africans creating content for us, by us, and putting that out there. Gen AI is pulling information from what? The data that's out there. If we are not creating content at the level that generative AI can be pulling from, we are going to continue to lose our essence of what it means to have an African perspective to the world.
Which is so deep. This is so deep. I think the major takeaway from this conversation is the uniqueness of who we are as a people, the uniqueness of what it is to be African, the uniqueness of our diversity as our strength. Let's not dilute our diversity. Yes, it seems like, we were separated. They created different countries and it was colonized by different colonial masters. That's fine. That's fine. They had to do that because of our diversity, right? They also needed to manage that diversity in a way. And it's not our weakness, it's our strength. Let's not try and synchronize that diversity. Let us explore that diversity, right? And let us authenticate that diversity. And let us begin to create content based on that diversity so that we can learn one from another. Look, guys, competition is what births creativity and innovation. Our diversity is what is going to birth a African innovation and African creativity, not eliminating our diversity. We can be united in our diversity. We can be one in our diversity. Okay. Look, when we're doing the African Cup of Nations, we're one, but we're diverse. Music has united us. Okay, everywhere we go now, everybody listens to Afrobeats. It's
Mm-hmm.
now a competition between Nigeria and South Africa to win, constantly each year, the Grammy Awards. Okay, it's still Afrobeats, but there's a vibe that comes from South Africa. There's a vibe that comes from Ghana. There's a vibe that comes from Congo. There's a vibe that comes from Nigeria. It is the key to us taking over the world. Our diversity is our biggest strength. And that is why, right, it is important to understand that our diversity makes us whole, not less, not in parts. Our diversity gives us that sense of wholeness. And as Africans, we must embrace that wholeness. Look, we are very spiritual. We can't take that away from what we are. We're very intellectual. We cannot take that away from what we are. We're very emotional. We cannot take that from what we are. We are very relational. We cannot take that away from what we are. We're very cultural and traditional. We cannot take that away from what we are. We're very unique in our differences. We cannot take that away from what we are. We're very bold and courageous and expressive. If you see a Yoruba man talking and an Igbo man talking, you would think they are fighting. No, no, no. They are speaking passionately. Let's embrace our diversity. And that's why in our own industry, the industry that coach Yeti and I belong to, the coaching industry, we have created a concept called Afro coaching to embrace our diversity and to embrace our wholeness. Because the Western approach to coaching looks at broken parts and tries to fix broken parts. That's not who we are. That's not how we are. We are very diverse. So you cannot solve an African man's problem if you do not see him as a whole system. And what does the whole system entail? Spirit, soul, body, and the entire village. Spirit, soul, mind, body, and the entire village. So you cannot just bring a tool to think that you fix the mind or fix the soul or fix the spirit or fix the body or fix, his environment. You've got to look at it as one. And so the person that is sitting with that person has to be diverse in his knowledge base, in his experience, in his training, and in his expertise to look at the whole African being as whole. And that's the concept of Afro coaching. It integrates theology with psychology, with neuroscience, with coaching, with sociology, with biology. It's a cocktail that transitions you from a place of dysfunctionality to functionality and optimal living. And so, if every one of us in our various industries approach, right, creating our authentic solutions as Africans, looking at Africans and Africa from a holistic perspective, we will be creating, breakthrough solutions specifically for Africans. So it will be by Africans for Africans or for Africans by Africans. So it is therefore very, very important for us to approach social media, digital media as a tool, study it, and ask ourselves, how can we use it to enhance our Africanism? How can we use it as a tool, right, to leapfrog us and reposition us next to our Western contemporaries? So, final question, Yeti. What responsibility do you think influencers and thought leaders have in reshaping our positive African identity and culture online? So let's speak to our African social media influencers. Let's speak to our musicians. Let's speak to our influencers online. We all have a responsibility. right? To begin to recalibrate, to begin to reshape, right? To begin to reposture as Africans. How do our thought leaders, our influencers, how do they begin to shape positive African identity and culture and authenticity online?
Absolutely fantastic question, and a great place to be spending some time today as well. You have to ask yourself who you are influencing, you know, and when you are being influenced, to also be aware that you are being influenced. And you don't become influenced by seeing one thing one time. You become influenced by seeing the same message multiple times from multiple people. That's one way of being influenced. So the same content multiple times from multiple people can also be an echo chamber issue, but if it's positive, then it's good. You are also influenced by seeing multiple content from the same person, right? Or from the same type of people. You can also be influenced by that. So it's many people, but it's one person, but everything they're talking about, you are being influenced by all their own perspectives of the world. Now, when you are influencing, as I tell my children, everybody has an agenda when they're out there. The only barrier now to having an agenda that you can push is whether or not you have data. That's it. Any kind of phone or device you have will get you online. So everybody has an agenda. And so from an influencer perspective, number one, did you ask to influence, or did you fall into the influencer role because you're like, oh, wow, people seem to like what I'm saying. And because they like what I'm saying, I've amassed this following. Oh, okay, let me continue to share this content. And for some people who are not authentic, they can start to share very questionable material, because remember, we talked about that dopamine high. They want to stay high, and they recognize that they need to do slightly crazier things every time, or share much more emotional content to get people to react. Most people don't get virality or influence by sharing safe, great, not usually, and the algorithms thrive. They hire psychologists, they hire people whose experience is in neuroscience. So they are creating their platforms to hook you. They're not creating their platforms to entertain you. So as a result, you have to recognize that if you are influencing, do you want to be an influencer? Then if you want to be an influencer, what are you influencing people on and about? Yeah. So do they have responsibility? For me, I don't answer that question by saying, yes, they have a responsibility to influence a certain way. If they didn't ask to be an influencer, but the algorithm has made them an influencer. Hello, hi, you that you're being influenced. Do you know what I mean? So does that mean, is it my responsibility that people are being influenced by crazy stuff I'm putting out there? But I never really expected to. But hey, I'm having fun on this ride. And by the way, I'm getting paid because the number of views I get is actually putting money passively in my account. What's my business if what you're influenced by is affecting your long-term goals? That's not my business. So for me, I'm not sensational that influencers owe anybody anything. They don't. That's my simple answer to that, right? However, as an African person, as somebody who believes that their role in the world is to make it better, is to improve the information out there, then you have a responsibility, because you are intentionally putting content out there that is influencing people, because you are sharing information that's life-giving. You are sharing information that's, I don't do motivation. I say I do transformation. Anybody can be motivated, but that's short-term. Transformation is, how does somebody go from here to here in a consistent way where they stay there. So they don't always need to come back to you to help them. No, when you have helped somebody transform, they can come back to you sometimes for a new level of transformation, but not to stay at the same level of struggle. Then you haven't grown. So if you want to influence authentically, positively as an African, that doesn't only influence Africans, but influences globally, you have to stay on your why. You have to stay on your why. You have to stay on your what do you believe, and then you're consistently giving more of that. Whether it's from speaking, it's from coaching, it's from singing. There are certain singers I love their beats, but I don't love their message. I'm not going to say all Afrobeat is great. There are some I'm like, I don't know, the beat is nice, but the message behind what they are saying, why now? Can't they use that same beat, still make us happy, but sing positively. So I don't believe in blanket stuff. Our actors, media is one of the pillars that affects the world the most. Period. Media is known that, okay, with media, it is a tool. But does that mean that everybody who's creating content in the media space or something to be leading us only in the positive direction? Not necessarily. So I think the onus falls back on us to say, who is influencing us? And do we want to be influenced by that message? Do we have a role to play when you're putting information out there? You do, but that goes to your level of authenticity and what is your why. If it doesn't connect, then you can't put anything on anybody's head. And I'll end with saying, I remember when I was listening to, I forget which of these artists it was, Cardi B, one of those ones, one of them. And they said, yes, there are some people who say that their lyrics are not friendly to children. But I never said my music was for your children. If your children are listening to my music, that's not my problem. That's your problem, that your children like my content. They're singing it, they're feeding on it, and that's influencing them. But I didn't come out to say I'm some role model for children. And that thing stuck with me because I was like, you know what? They are making their music and selling out and all of that, getting endorsements, blah, blah, blah. They never came and told you as it started that I'm doing this to improve your mindset. So I think with that, but do we owe something to the world as Africans? If you want to, you do. And you can create content that really hits people in a way that transforms them with their mind so that they're the best versions of themselves. And they're seeing people that look like them, that sound like them, that have lived experiences. And suddenly I look and I think, this lady that's from my village or from my city, see what she's doing on the global stage. That means I can do it. That is a positive way to use it.
Wow, I love that. I love that. What I take away from that last conversation is that, you're both an influencer and you're also influenced. Wow. And if you choose someone or you stumble on someone or someone is consciously or unconsciously your influencer, ask yourself, what is influencing that my influencer?
Absolutely.
Is it the algorithm? Is it fame? Is it money? Or is it power? Because that influencer may not be influencing you because of you. You may not be a subject of thought. They may not be doing what they are doing because of you. And if they are not doing it because of you, then they are actually really not conscious about what they are doing. So you are being influenced by their unconscious behaviors. Hmm. Wow. Now. Also, if your influencer is being influenced by the number of comments on their posts, then you are actually the influencer. So take a step back and ask yourself, what is influencing my influencer? Am I actually my influencer? You're actually your influencer's influencer, then you shouldn't be allowing that influencer to be influencing you. And that's a good place for us to wrap this conversation up. I want to thank you very much, JT, for your wealth of wisdom, really, really deep conversations. And I hope the listeners that have joined us have taken one or two things away from this conversation. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in to the Be Transformed podcast. Remember that this transformation begins with you, but it begins with the renewal of your mind. If this has been of any value to you, right, if the conversation with Yeti has added immense value to you, don't just keep it to yourself. Make sure you share it. Make sure you share the YouTube links and the Spotify and the Apple links or wherever you listen to the podcast from. Share it with everybody that you know. Yeti, thank you very much for adding immense and incredible value on this podcast.
Thank you so much, TC, for having me here. Very interesting conversation, many layers, and I love sharing, with you. And I'm so happy to have been on your podcast today. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So together, let's keep transforming minds and let's keep transforming lives, one episode and one mind at a time. Have a wonderful day. Shalom. I am successful. I look for and find opportunities where others see nothing. I am a lifetime learner. I am solution focused. I see only solutions. I am a solution.